and welcome. On behalf of iAccelerate and the UW alumni team, it's a pleasure to welcome you here this morning to our Entrepreneurial Women's Breakfast. My name is Georgia Watson, I'll be your MC for the formal part of this morning. I coordinate the LIFT project here at UW, empowering women in STEM and women in entrepreneurship. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that country for Aboriginal peoples is an interconnected set of ancient and sophisticated relationships. The University of Wollongong spreads across many interrelated Aboriginal countries that are bound by this sacred landscape and intimate relationship with that landscape since creation. From Sydney to the Southern Highlands to the South Coast, from freshwater to bitter water to salt, from city to urban to rural, the University of Wollongong acknowledges the custodianship of the Aboriginal peoples of this place and space that has kept alive the relationships between all living things. The university acknowledges the devastating impact of colonisation on our campuses and commit ourselves to truth-telling, healing and education. As a scientist myself, I also want to acknowledge that the First Nations peoples of this land are the world's first scientists, innovating solutions through connection. I'd also like to extend a special welcome to our guests who are here today, including Deputy Vice-Chancellor for Research and Sustainable Futures, Senior Professor Eileen McLaughlin, Deputy Vice-Chancellor for Academic and Student Life, Senior Professor Sue Bennett, Pro-Vice-Chancellor for Industry and Engagement, Paul De Pietro, and UW Council Member Merrin Dawson. We also have our fabulous panel members here, Belinda Gibbons, Pia Winberg, Susan Haddon and Tanya Jones, all of whom have a long-lasting connection to iAccelerate. And of course, I'd like to welcome you, our many alumni, iAccelerate residents, staff, students and community members who have joined us here today. This is our second breakfast of the year and we're thrilled to be able to bring people together again in this way. We want to create a forum where we can discuss the challenges that women in entrepreneurship face and share the lessons that they've learnt to encourage and inspire others. To speak more on this, I'd like to introduce our Deputy Vice-Chancellor for Research and Sustainable Futures, Senior Professor Eileen McLaughlin.
Thank you, Georgia. And I'd like to say thank you to Ainsley, who actually arranged all this event, for all her help. Unfortunately, she's unwell today and can't be with us, but we're with her in spirit. So, hello and welcome to today's Entrepreneurial Women's Breakfast Series conversation. I too would like to begin by paying my respects to the Aboriginal elders past and present and to acknowledge their custodianship and continued spiritual and cultural connection to the lands on which the University of Wollongong campuses are located. And I can't think of a more beautiful morning to be here. Thank you to the iAccelerate and the alumni engagement teams who are hosting today's event, and thank you to our special guests who will be discussing their truly innovative businesses tackling the sustainability challenges we face. It's wonderful to see so many UW alumni, staff and guests from the broader community here today. It is a pleasure to see how this breakfast begins to bring us all together. iAccelerate has an ongoing commitment to supporting underrepresented groups within the entrepreneurial space, and the team has done a great deal to support female founders throughout the year. Since it began in July last year, the LIFT project, which Georgia coordinates, has supported 36 female-led startups to access the Activate Pre-Accelerator here at iAccelerate and has facilitated 13 industry internships for women undertaking their PhD in STEM disciplines. And as the leader of the Faculty of Science, Medicine and Health, I have to say that's a wonderful achievement. I'm really, really proud of them. Currently, iAccelerate has an outstanding 53% of companies in the programme with an active female founder, which is well above the national and international average. And I encourage you to go and look at the statistics because they are really quite challenging. I look forward to seeing the future of female founders coming out of these programmes, the companies they create, and the positive changes that they bring to the world. And this is something that the university is very proud of. When women come together, great things happen. We hope that the conversation today inspires you to continue beyond this morning to make positive change. Thank you very much for coming, and I pass back to Georgia to introduce our panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. I'd now like to welcome our panellists and facilitator up to the stage. Our facilitator today is Associate Professor Belinda Gibbons, the Acting Dean of the School of Business in the Faculty of Business and Law at UOW. Belinda specialises in responsible and sustainable development, decision-making, reporting and impact, combining 25 years of academic and corporate experience. Belinda is an expert in residence at iAccelerate and facilitates the workshop UN SDGs for Startups, which is a foundational subject for our Activate Pre-Accelerator program. Her passion for embedding the UN Sustainable Development Goals within education, industry and community received a citation for outstanding contributions to student learning alongside becoming a senior fellow of the Higher Education Academy. Belinda works with all faculties across UOW, local councils, schools and community organisations to enable action towards realising the UN Sustainable Development Goals. On our panel today we have Tanya Jones. Tanya is the Manager for Sustainable Market Development at Green Gravity, who are developing breakthrough technology in the green energy storage sector, with the goal of radically accelerating the world's renewable energy transition. Tanya has over 25 years' experience in corporate technology, governance and management systems, ESG investor relations and reporting, and community and stakeholder engagement in the resources and manufacturing sector. I'm also very excited to let you know that Green Gravity has just recently secured $9 million in Series A funding for gravitational energy storage. That's incredible. Next up, we have Pia Winberg. From researcher to founder, Pia has over 25 years' experience in the marine industry and academia, focusing on coastal ecology, fisheries and sustainable aquaculture. As a founder and director, she is pioneering Australia's seaweed biomass and extracts development and production at Venus Shell Systems, and is a leader in the seaweed for wellness sector, developing a range of food, supplement and skin products at FICO Health. Finally, we have Susan Haddon, who is the visionary behind Ruland and Rucreate, leading the eco-design movement in the branding industry for over 2 decades. She has collaborated with some of the world's top 500 companies, demonstrating her expertise and commitment to excellence. She is also a founding member of Circular Plastics Illawarra, determined to see problem plastics in the Illawarra eliminated and all plastic packaging reduced, reused and recycled. As an advocate for climate action and sustainability myself, I'm really looking forward to learning from all of these outstanding women. And so now I will hand over to Belinda to kick us off.
I'm really honoured to facilitate today's panel. Pia, Tanya and Susan are such inspiring women leaders that are really transforming the sustainability landscape. And so it's an honour to be here and to listen to their stories. So over, I guess, the next half an hour, I'll be asking them some questions and learning more about their businesses, their challenges, and a little bit about their sustainability, entrepreneurship journey, and then we'll open it up to some questions, and hopefully you will leave here inspired to start your day of work, wherever that may take you. So thank you so much. I thought we might kick off with just understanding a little bit more about what inspired you to start your businesses, as amazing as they are. And how did sustainability factor into that vision? Like, was it always there, or did it just come along the way? Maybe I'll kick off with Pia.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, no, thanks, Belinda. It's sustainability is actually the absolute essence of why I do what I do. Sometimes I'm selling corn chips, but secretly it's really, I'm a nitrogen capturer, I call myself, because I come from the Department of Systems Ecology at Stockholm University, where they're very strong at ecological economics, where we're not afraid to mix ecology with business. And that's always been my train of thought, is that, you know, we have to start merging those two fields to achieve sustainability, and then working with the industries that are part of the cause of the problems on Earth, especially in food production. But so that's where the solution is going to happen. So we have to make business work better in some way. And I guess in the end, for me, it was a feeling as an academic that I was just talking the walk and no one was walking it. So I really felt like, you have to jump out to show people how this can happen. It's bridging the gap of the, cliche science and industry, but that is the space where change can happen. And so that's what I felt, is that I had to start taking the science into the real world where business, finance is operating, and try and make the change from the inside. So that's why I ended up here.
And were you just swimming one day and saw seaweed and nothing about that?
No, no, not at all. I didn't wake up thinking I'd be a seaweed farmer, but I did get the opportunity to do my master's research at Stockholm Uni back in '98 in Sri Lanka, and looked at how do we clean up the big coastal impact of aquaculture. Totally devastating in countries like that, where they shovel down the mangroves to make money off a high-value tiger prawn that they export to, wealthy people in Europe. And it's such a devastating model. And I mean, we're aware of some of the other impacts in aquaculture, like salmon farming in Tasmania is got a bit of a reputation. And so these things are just disrupting the ecological system. And how do we put that back into the ecological cycle? It's really permaculture, if you like, on a big scale, but the earth has disrupted its permaculture system, and that's the way we think at the Department of Stockholm's Ecology Ecosystems at Stockholm University. And how do we push those flows back into place? Nitrogen pollution and being a key one, as well as carbon dioxide emissions, and putting seaweed into the coastal zones can reverse so many of our impacts from food production, because it sucks up the nutrients, and it's a more powerful organism than people understand, and oxygenating the earth originally and things like that. So really trying to communicate and put seaweed into action of reversing climate change and environmental impacts is what I can see, and my challenge is to communicate that to everyone else.
Thanks, Pia. Suzanne, want to tell us a little bit about your story?
So I have a packaging and design branding firm, and sustainability has always been within the company from the day one, and it comes from within. I think when starting the business, it wasn't like I'm going to build a sustainable business in sustainability. It was like, I'm going to solve the problem of packaging and not use plastic and figure out solutions around that. So that has always been my ethos in the business, and it's always been something that I bring forward. When I speak with clients and I talk to them about what we're trying to achieve, it's about how can we do something different and not use the typical materials that you normally use. How can we use different materials and be more open-minded to how we use that within the design of the packaging or the design of something we're creating. And then it also comes back into the marketing of the business and how we're going to take all this information and show it and tell it to the consumer, or let people understand that they're doing things differently. It might cost a bit more, but it's going to be better on the long run. And I think that whole educational part that we need to bring forward to clients is so important. And it's something that I've always believed in. And you have to be really subtle in how you bring it into a client. You have to be, you have to talk them through the process and how it's going to improve and the long-term goals and the outcome. So yeah, in Ruland and RuCreate, and circular plastic is another area where I work in, is trying to get people to change their mindset, not take plastic for granted, try not to use plastic as much as possible. If you have to use it, how can you use it less? Be more aware of different materials that you can use for your packaging. And like we all say, packaging is a problem area. It is one of the hardest areas to solve. And that's why it's so exciting for me, because it's exciting and it's inspirational, because how can we solve this? And it's happening. It takes a long time, but there's new materials coming into the market all the time, and I love researching and learning about them. But it's exciting because we're really on the edge right now of changing into a new materials that is going to transform our packaging and our food process, things like that. That's really exciting times.
And is there any specific meaning behind Ruland?
Well, yeah. Ruland was an imaginary character of mine when I was a little girl. And he actually lived in this world where everything was recycled. And I know this sounds really silly, but that was sort of my mindset when I was young. And I grew up on a farm up in the mountains, and we reused everything. Nothing got wasted. So I didn't really have a chance to think, oh, I should, this gets trashed, because we used it all. Yeah.
Tanya.
Yes. I come from a local startup called Green Gravity, and what we do is pretty much in the name. We harness gravity to store excess renewable energy, and our why and our sustainable is a nice problem to have. As we've moved on to more renewable energy, it has created a problem because we're using natural systems. Those natural systems are intermittent. The sun doesn't shine at night time when we need to cook our meals and do our homework. So what our company does is takes that excess energy in the middle of the day when we have surplus, and we basically raise weights through repurposed mine shafts, and those weight on the surface of the earth for when we need to dispatch that energy. And one of the great things about gravity and potential energy, and this is sort of going back to our year 10 physics, is we can generate energy through a combination of mass times gravity and height. And that's how hydro power works. And we're doing the same, but without the water. So basically, as that weight gets lowered down our deep mine shafts, which are hundreds of meters deep, it's turning a regenerative motor. And those electrons are going back in the grid. And coming back to sustainability, it's this mindset that you just spoke about, Suzanne. When you start to think that there is no waste, everything should be repurposed, we should understand what will happen next in the life of what we're doing, you really start to think differently. So we're looking at mine shafts that are already connected to the grid, that are already lined, that have infrastructure, but more importantly, have skills and communities around them that used to operate them. They can now transition across to renewable energy. But the exciting thing is that we confirm and back up that renewable energy. And that's often been what's been the choke, or the thing that's not allowed us to move to 100% renewable, is we didn't have that backup. And evidence, just this week with Broken Hill, how important energy is to our livelihoods. And so Green Gravity, from a sustainability standpoint, we wouldn't exist if we didn't have the issue of sustainable renewable energy to firm. And we are trying wherever we can to bring that mindset of there is no waste. We're just repurposing mine shafts, the weighted objects that we're building. We're looking at repurposing waste streams from other sectors that need to sort of capture and store that energy, that waste. And so when you start with that sustainability circular mindset, it's amazing, and it makes for good business as well.
Are you a science background, Tanya?
I am a computing science kid from Wollongong University that started my life asking questions about how do we improve things, how can we make it better, how can we connect it, what data we need. So I have been on work experience my whole life. But about 5 years ago, because data has always been at the core and working with people and trying to improve things, I stepped into something called ESG. Environment, social and governance, reporting and impact. And for me, that changed my, what I always knew intrinsically was good corporate activity. It started to put data and a value around it. So I shifted my computing science analytics across to ESG and started to, discover these amazing things that many in this room and our wonderful businesses are working on, and how important it is to value and measure that impact, because that attracts money, and money makes change happen. So that's my background.
I love that. Thank you for sharing those stories. And I'm not sure if you're feeling this already, but these three women are some serious business and science combined, which I think is quite beautiful and quite essential, as you mentioned, moving forward and understanding this space. I guess a little bit related, my second question is about, obviously we've seen the narrative change so much in this space, in the sustainability space, but I'm particularly interested in how you've seen it change in regards to investment and those operational requirements around sustainability. I know, Susan, you mentioned, you move into a space quite subtly, but do you think that's changed, and the investment and operational requirements of your business, I guess, and what you've seen? I might kick off with you.
Yeah, well, I find that more businesses are coming to us for the environmental impact change and for their packaging to change, and then the whole business itself to change their ethos. So I have found that more and more companies are already having a budget for it, and they want change, especially in Australia. I do think a lot of American companies are coming to us because we have experience in that area. So they feel comfortable that we can handle this project for them and then get it sourced and complete the project. Because it can get complicated in packaging where some projects can't get completed if the material's not ready. So yes, I find within my business, I'm getting the more bigger companies coming and saying, yeah, we have this money set aside for the sustainability issues that we want to deal with, and let's tackle them now.
Interesting, in a country where a government doesn't necessarily, have a climate or a transition plan. And so it's interesting that, do you feel corporates are ahead of government in this space then?
Well, in Australia, we have a lot of mandates that are coming into play. So yes, they have to, by 2025, they have to be, certain mandates are coming through, and they have to be certified and ready to go, or else their packaging can't be on the shelf. But aside from that, other companies are knowing that it's for the environment. They want to change. They want to make a difference. They want to be able to talk about the changes they're making with their packaging and with their business, and show that off. And I think there's a need for that right now.
Thank you for sharing. Pia, how about yourself? I guess in your industry, what have you seen those changes over the last 10 years?
Yeah, I think, people have been talking about sustainability for a long time. But I think that now there's, like here, a few companies that are really emerging with some traction and track record in doing it. And I guess that's what an entrepreneur is. You go out there and you just do it, right? And so because of that, other people are going, oh, there is a solution to this. Oh, they're doing this. Oh, I better keep up. And a little bit, like you said, with the mandates, I think mandates are better than the government solving the problem. But if the government sets in mandates, then companies have to live up to it. How are they going to do it? And then you can start talking to these companies or investors about, well, here is a solution that we've already worked out for you in part. And so I think that's where the change is happening, is that it is happening, and now people are having to come in and catch up, and then so you have there's a bit more of a magnet effect, because you are actually doing it, and that's what I think is very important in doing entrepreneurship and sustainability. Is it's very easy to talk about it, but it's the people that actually show small, real steps that make the movement happen.
Yeah, no, I like that. And investment-wise, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I mean, you've seen that firsthand.
So much, and I'm picking up on exactly what's just said, and I'll probably replay it back with 3 points. About 10, 15 years ago, we started to see a maturing in the way that people were talking about sustainability, measuring it, and frameworks to actually define what good sustainability looks like. Then they moved into rankings and ratings. So companies started to get assessed on how their performance rated. And so those frameworks looked at things not only environmental and biodiversity and water practice, but also human aspects in terms of diversity and inclusion, human rights, and looking at good governance as well. You need to have those measurement systems in play before you can do the things that we've just discussed, because if you don't measure it, you can't improve it, but more importantly, you can't put a value on it. And that's the second point. Once those frameworks were in place, we started to see the capital market put the money into the companies that were performing best. Makes sense. They're going to be more resilient. Their product's going to be around longer. They're not going to have to pay, all the credits and the fines. And so we started to see major institutional investors shift their dollar. And so the Australian Superannuation Council, which is where much of our super, and we are customers of that institute, have basically pushed the dial on saying, we're only going to invest our shareholders' portfolios in companies that perform well on sustainability. So that group established the Climate Action 100 Plus benchmark. And it's gone and rated all of our 150, might even be 200 now, companies on the stock exchange in terms of how well they were performing against a common set of environmental activities. We had workplace equality starting to look at every year, starting to make sure that we're putting in our reports how our companies are making sure that they've got diverse and equality in remuneration. Modern slavery has started to come in, these mandates that Pia talks around, making sure we understand our supply chains. And it's not just what we do, but what the people we buy from and sell to are doing from a sustainability perspective. And so by having the measurement, then having a dollar placed on what good practice means, you can then, as a government, do the last piece, which is the policy. And so now what we're seeing is these mandates on climate reporting that need to come in. We see these mandates on disclosure of your emissions, as we pointed out, in modern slavery practices and your recruitment and inclusion. You can't put the policies in at the start. You've got to get the language, get the metrics, give it a value, and then enforce it. So that's what I've seen happen. It's been an awesome journey, and it's happening. And we've got companies that are now saying, you know what? It's not only a good thing to do, but it makes business sense. It's safer. It's cheaper. It's it's resilient.
It's more fun.
And it's more fun. And we can talk to our kids about it, and, not sort of try to hide behind, but we sort of need this. It's like, no, we're using our skills and experience to make a difference. So it's pretty cool.
I love that. Yeah. I always talk to my children. My beautiful daughter will agree up the back, where I'm going to live as we move forward over the next couple of decades because of the heat. And so we always look at the map, of Australia and pick the coldest place. We go, that's kind of, that's where we'll eventually want to end up. But yeah, I know the amazing work that you're doing, and I think I love the conversation around, because sustainability is such a big topic, and we use the word quite easily. And I love that, you're mentioning equity and slavery. And as I feel the mandates focus us in particular areas, like net zero and climate is the big hot topic of the day, but we just can't focus on that alone. And I think, which is interesting. Looking at your biggest sustainability challenges that you've faced or that you've seen, especially, being an inspiring woman leader in this field. Biggest challenge, Pia?
Oh, well, I don't think there's one. There's many.
Other than not enough seaweed.
There's many. And as you as you start to turn the wheels of a business, there's so many things that have to fall into place. I would say that, just very briefly, investment and convincing investment and that sort of journey and working with that space is very challenging. One of my most challenging, not just in terms of achieving it, but working and keeping a motivation in that space is very hard. But I would say, just on the sustainability as a whole, one of the biggest challenges is the fitting in your sustainable model into the existing supply chains, because that's what you have to do to change those supply chains. But just as you said, someone now at this end is requiring, I had to write an anti-slavery policy for my company, and I was like, oh, I don't have an anti-slavery policy. I didn't ever think about that. But then it makes you think about, oh, well, where's the coconut oil coming from that we put in our muesli? Because you were thinking about it from a sustainability point of view, but I actually had to then go in and look at which countries would I be buying coconut oil from, and that's an example of how I think I'm all about sustainability, but other companies are triggering me to follow up on a sustainable and ethical sources as well. And the whole supply chain connection is a really big challenge, because it cannot be right on day one. And so therefore you do have to compromise your own, you say, oh, I've got to buy gas. So I've just got to buy gas. One day it will be solar, but right now, to get to the next point, I have to buy gas. And slowly we're now weaning ourselves off gas, and we've got a 99 kilowatt solar system on our roof, and that's exciting. But you can't let perfection and your absolute commitment to sustainability prevent progress to taking those steps either, because it isn't going to be perfect on day one. And I guess that's the challenge, is understanding how you fit in a supply chain, and that, yes, these challenges ahead can be improved as we move forward. But the most important thing is you keep moving forward.
I love that. Yeah, that questioning your underlying values and ethos, and how to approach those conversations with others in that supply chain. That must be very difficult.
Yeah, and some larger companies, like some supermarket customers, now sort of put into place very systemized requirements, and like, where's your policy on this? How do you? And so it's sort of good for you to sit down and reflect on how you can deliver that. But it's also a lot of work, and then you realize, actually, this is going to make me very competitive. It's going to make our sustainable company very competitive in the future when we can deliver data and report and solve for the supply chain for other companies. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. And I guess that entrepreneurial mindset that each of you have, I'm assuming you're sitting there thinking, now, how do I make milk out of seaweed? Is there something?
Yeah. I know how I can make other milk better with our seaweed. So yeah, I can fit seaweed in everything.
I can see it. I can see it.
Yeah.
I can see it. How about you, Tanya? Largest challenges?
Very similar. I think it's the supply chain. When you're starting up, it is really easy to use cost and expediency as the reason for why you take a certain path. But you need to have accountability across that whole supply chain. And I think it's understanding who your partners and where your product's coming from, and not walking away if you see something that probably isn't where you would like it to be, but actually working with those suppliers and that particular part of the supply chain to perhaps think differently about their practices and work with it. And I suppose that sort of comes back a little bit to, where there's a problem, there's also that opportunity. And I think if you go in very much with that sustainable sort of mindset, it's amazing in your design process in these early startups, how you start to challenge your design and your components and your approach and sort of think, well, why can't we do that? Why can't we hold ourselves, to account in these areas? And you find that just having that mindset and that opening challenge, you do find the solutions. And there are parts of your community that want to work with you to find those solutions as well. So yes, I suppose to sort of summarize, the biggest challenge is that when you're just trying to keep the company, the idea and everything moving forward, you can settle, but I think it's also the role to actually challenge and to design in sort of those sustainable practices and start small steps and make it practical.
Is it similar things with the supply chain?
It is a bit, yeah. I think one of the biggest issues for us is when you go to a supplier and they say, no, it can't be done. And then you have to figure out a solution around it. For us, we are problem solvers. So we try to come up with the best solution, and then we work with the supplier to create that. So it's a little bit different because you guys have a set supply chain that you're dealing with.
Yes.
I just went through B Corp. Well, in 2020, I guess I became a B Corp, and that is doing all of that. And now I'm just going through the process again to reassess everything we're doing. So it brings up everything, like you said, that you have to have a policy for, and you just kind of plan for it. So I've been spending many nights writing different policies for in the business. So when you're working, you can pull that out and you're ready to go with it. And it makes it so much easier. But all our suppliers are 100% sustainable. They've all been certified, and we work with them to get to that point. But most of them have already started doing the process because they want to be a supplier for us or for other companies. So they're on it already, and you just have to find the good ones, and you have to work with them and get them to do better.
Was this difficult at the start? Like to find?
Well, no, but it was in a way. Yeah, I searched and searched. Yes, I did. I went through. I have over 50 suppliers that are really great and are doing sustainability all over the world, and they have a mission as much as we do.
Yeah. It's probably much larger than we think it is.
Yeah, it is. But they have to compete as well with everyone else. So they need to be more sustainable. It's a better business model. So they are aware of it, well aware of it, and they know that we can't use them unless they have those certificates. They're not going to, I can't use them.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. And I guess talking about, you mentioned suppliers, and especially in Australia, I was wondering what opportunities are there locally for sustainable startups and businesses? I know you've all kind of have a very close relationship with Beautiful Accelerate, but do you see that increasing and lots of opportunities here in the Illawarra, Shoalhaven, South Coast?
Yeah, I can start.
Yeah.
I think for startups and working in sustainability, it's to get to work in a place like this, like I Accelerate, because you have the community around you. You can ask questions. You can get help, because it is overwhelming at first and not understanding where you want to take that business. The second thing is government. I feel like there are a lot of government initiatives that you can apply for grants and you can try to get funding and get help that way. And then I guess just building that community, like being aware and helping other people go, oh yeah, I know about this or I know about that. And then just being able to connect with each other and help each other along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any local suppliers?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they're local. They're in Sydney.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, they're changing. Everyone's got to. I mean, it's important. Yeah, it's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about yourself, Pia?
Yeah, it's actually pretty exciting to know that, as I said before, you've got to start burning gas in the beginning, but one thing we need is energy and packaging, and that's also, I think, important for you to understand that we have to break down the silo mentality. That's the solution to sustainability, because we're all connected. So I need energy, I need packaging, I need the transport, we need the systems, but also we're cleaning up a nutrient stream and regenerating it. So we actually have to be connected to the source of the problem, which is a business in operation, and we have to be connected to the customers at the other end. So we're really dot joiners and problem solvers in a way. And to know that we're not the only ones, and that and that's where you go, well, I actually don't have time to solve the energy and thermal transfer of heat at this system at the moment, but know that it's coming up. And so I'm actually going to talk to you about your gravity afterwards. But there's a couple of really innovative on the South Coast in the Shoalhaven right now. One of the very first ice batteries emerging, and it's been installed in a dairy. And because part of our problem with food, things we need in our processing and everything is hot, heating things, and cold, and that takes a lot of energy. So on the South Coast now, there's our wonderful plumbing and welding company that we use in Bomaderry have installed one of the first ice batteries in a dairy there. So it's actually chilled by solar power all day, giant ice blocks, enough that when the sun goes down, you're then not needing an electronic battery, just using the power of ice, holding the cold overnight, and that the room air gets circulated through that. And that actually now in Malaysia is the air conditioning systems for large airports and things like that. And we didn't really use it in Australia. And now in the Shoalhaven, it's being installed for the first time with a dairy. And so you can see that, and then I learn about that from the guys doing my welding, and you're like, oh wow, I want a nice battery. And so you start joining the dots with all the other entrepreneurs, and so you're not alone out there, and slowly they're all emerging and connecting.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
So exciting, isn't it? Do you think Einstein's watching over us today? Impressive. Yeah.
And what I love is that they're natural systems as well. And there's a lot of both looking to nature for our inspiration. I see that we have Hisata represented with us, Leanne in the room. That we're learning from nature. And we also have wonderful Indigenous leaders like our beautiful Jodie Edwards in terms of, understanding our natural systems as well. And so there's so much built-in natural knowledge that we just have to connect and lock into. And we're so fortunate here in the Illawarra. Like, we've got some of Australia's, let alone the world's, leading scientists, thinkers, and disruptors that are driving our sustainability story. So whether it's Sol Griffiths, that's not only changing the Inflation Act over in the US, coming back to rewire Australia, but then getting our 2515 up and running. We've got Tim Flannery, I've mentioned already, beautiful Jodie Edwards, our team here at I Accelerate, and all of the amazing startups that they're nurturing. From a local government standpoint, Invest Wollongong are rocking in terms of really lifting our profile as a place not only to live, but to drive sustainable and economic benefit for our region. When we talk about repurposing and sustainability, good on BlueScope. I don't know whether we have any BlueScopers in the room, but for $1, they allowed us to repurpose an old warehouse out at their Port Kembla warehouse to set up our demo site. So this comes back to we've got partners here in the Illawarra that not only believe in sustainability, but many of those leaders and those agencies, they don't succeed in isolation, and they know the benefit of lifting together. And I know I've forgotten a lot of people in the room, but everyone here is playing part in that sustainability story, and we should be so proud of our region in that we've got all those ingredients. And the university continues to churn out amazing graduates, and that's another part of connecting in. That you'll find that many of the representatives of the businesses are turning up at the STEM showcases, at the interns, at the apprenticeships, and then we've got community groups like High Neighbour that are trying to, provide that comfort blanket to say, you know what, you can transition from, this career that you had across into renewable energy, and you can't buy that, that goodwill and that movement, and we have it, and so exciting to see what our companies.
Thank you for sharing. Just before I open it up for some questions, I guess obviously you've been in this business for quite some time now, and you've seen so much change. I know all these budding startups out in the audience, and a lot of students. And I was just wondering what advice you would give them as an aspiring entrepreneur looking to create, I guess, not only a business, but a sustainable business. Words of advice. We'll quote it down.
Yeah, I think it's really important to always stay true to your passion, and to understand that if you're going into sustainability entrepreneurship, people will tell you there's a model. There isn't. You've got to work it out. Every business, every technology is unique as every person. And so you've got to just believe, and it's hard to trust in yourself, but listen around you, but then absorb and believe in what is your driver, your passion, and what feels right in your gut in the end, because that will lead you to a step that you may change, but it will take you to the step that you had to get to make the right change and keep going.
I love that. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I think with starting a business and being a startup, it can be very difficult. And I think, like Pia said, it's that inspiration and that passion behind you. It takes a lot of effort and energy, and you just come every day and you just keep going at it, and you don't give up. And I feel like I love what I do. I'm also very passionate about what I do, so it makes it easy. It's not work to me. It's a passion. So if you're an entrepreneur, you just have to have that fire in your belly, and you just got to go for it. And then, like we said, just meet with other people and ask them how they did it. There is no set pattern. It's how you develop your business is your own style. It can be very different, but don't be afraid to ask someone what they think of what you're doing, or get feedback. That's the great thing also about being here, was the mentors that you could get, and just throw it all out there and say, this is what I'm trying to do. What do you think? Is this possible? And getting that feedback was great, because you go back and you do it again. So I guess just keep pushing and feel that passion, inspiration.
And I think that's changed a lot over the years as well. I think entrepreneurship, used to be I want to hide in my corner and keep my patent and not tell anyone because they're going to steal my idea. Whereas that's kind of very much changed now to, You know,
Yeah.
everyone has their own ideas and they're working on their passions, and that's what, yeah, it's a very special network here.
Yeah.
Tanya, words of advice.
Yeah, start with the end in mind. It's that repurposing and that circular. I'm really big about manifesting, you know, where we're going to be in 5 years and 10 years. And the more that you think, well, okay, where do we need to be? What does good look like? You live in that feeling, you live in that, and that's what drives the purpose. And so as you hit those speed humps and, you know, things aren't moving as quickly as you've already lived what it, you know, what it feels like and what good looks like and what you need to be doing. And it just makes it so much more achievable and practical, and great things happen. So, yeah, big believer in dream big and yeah, go bold and go for it.
And just to put you on the spot, because I know we didn't ask this one, but what is that 20-year dream? Where do you see Green Gravity in 20 years?
In world domination, no. Just to give you a sense of the amount of holes humankind has dug into this earth, we have 90,000 in Australia. There's over 2 million that we've discovered today, and they are damn deep. They're like kilometres down. I want every fossil fuel mining community to have repurposed that hole in the ground, whether they're using gravity, whether they're using thermal, whether they're using another form of ice or, you know, natural, but not disturbing any more land, to put renewable batteries on, battery technology on, but repurposing and really making sure that, we don't think twice about the fact that we never have to worry about renewable energy not being there for us, because we've got that firmed energy storage captured and nothing's wasted. Because
I love that.
Yeah,
So someone's done the work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's there. We just need to
I love it. Thank you
get
for
them out.
sharing.
Yeah.
What about you, Suzanne?
Well, my dream is to not make plastic anymore and just reuse the plastic we have and repurpose it.
Yeah.
We don't have the need for it. I mean, we don't need to make bioplastic anymore because there's so much already in the environment. Can we repurpose it, grab it, and not waste it? And rethink packaging, you know, rethink it to a better way. You know?
I love that. I love that. Yeah, dream.
Yeah, well, I have 10% seaweed in my pasta, and my vision is that why can't a seaweed industry be as big as 10% of the wheat industry in Australia? And if we achieved that, we would eliminate the need for 1 million hectares of land used for food production, because we're that much more productive and with zero waste. So it's a big dream, but I would say, you know, it's not like a greedy dream of taking and achieving wealth. It's a dream of regenerating at scale, is how I see it. And 10% of the wheat industry, a new crop for Australia, because we are a land of crops and food production, and we are not doing seaweed when it's a $25 billion global industry. And so it really should be there as part of the circular economy that we have.
I love that. We don't dream enough, I think. So that's been a really lovely discussion. Thank you so much.